I need you to understand something that most people in your position don't understand. When an avoidant leaves, when they go cold, create distance, make it feel like the chapter is closing, they are not done with you. Not yet. Their system is doing something specific and predictable after the exit, and if you understand what it's doing, you understand why the period after they leave is the most important period for your behavior and your growth. The revaluation is coming. For most avoidants who had real attachment to you, not all, but most, there is a specific moment after the leaving when everything shifts in their internal world. When the strategies they were using to justify the exit begin to crack. When the accurate version of you, who you actually are, what you actually meant to them, begins to surface through the suppression, and what you do in the period between the leaving and that moment determines whether the revaluation leads anywhere worth going. Today I'm going to tell you exactly when the revaluation happens. Not approximately, exactly, what triggers it, what it feels like from the inside, what changes in them during it. And then I'm going to tell you the most important thing, what that means for what you should be doing right now in the period when everything feels uncertain and the direction forward isn't clear. Because the uncertainty isn't a sign that nothing is happening. It's a sign that everything is happening inside their system in ways that their controlled exterior is designed to conceal. Understanding the machinery underneath that exterior changes how you navigate this entirely. Let's go. The mechanism they use to leave and why it's temporary. When an avoidant decides to end or significantly withdraw from a relationship, they don't just walk away. Their nervous system doesn't allow for clean exits. Instead, they deploy a specific set of psychological strategies that allow them to create the emotional and physical distance they need while maintaining some sense of justification for doing it. The primary mechanism is what attachment researchers call derogation of the partner, the amplification of your perceived flaws, incompatibilities, and the problems in the relationship. This isn't malicious, and it isn't entirely conscious. It's the avoidance deactivating system doing what it does, finding the evidence that supports the distance. Your qualities that they found annoying get amplified in their memory and current perception. The genuine care and connection you shared gets minimized, reframed, dismissed. The incompatibilities that were always there and that exist in every relationship become in the avoidance current processing fundamental rather than manageable. They genuinely experience this version of things. The deactivating strategy doesn't present itself as a strategy. It presents itself as clear-eyed assessment. From inside the avoidance experience, they're not suppressing positive feelings about you. They're just seeing clearly that this relationship wasn't right, that the specific frustrations were too significant, that leaving was the correct choice. The suppression is so effective that it changes the phenomenology, the subjective experience. But here's the thing about suppression. It requires the continued presence of the suppressed material. You cannot suppress something that isn't there. And the positive feelings they have about you, the genuine attachment, the real appreciation of your specific qualities, the memories of what was genuinely good between you, those are very much there. They're just being managed. And managed material, under the right conditions, stops being manageable. Those conditions are the conditions of your genuine absence. And your genuine absence is the beginning of the revaluation. The exact trigger, what sets the revaluation in motion? Let me be specific about what actually triggers the revaluation, because understanding it precisely prevents you from trying to produce it through the wrong means. The revaluation does not get triggered by you reaching out. I know that feels counterintuitive. I know the urgency inside you right now is saying, if they understood how you feel, if they could see you clearly, if you could just communicate the right thing, then they'd remember what this was. But every reach, every message, every gesture of connection you send during the post-exit period does not trigger revaluation. It triggers the opposite. It provides the avoidance deactivating system with fresh material, fresh evidence of the emotional demand that the exit was managing. It confirms the narrative that the distance was necessary. It keeps the strategy in play. The revaluation gets triggered by your genuine absence, specifically by the avoidance encounter with the reality of you being gone in a way their system wasn't fully prepared for. Not temporarily gone, not strategically gone. Gone in the way someone is gone when they've genuinely redirected their life and are no longer organized around this connection. Why does genuine absence trigger it? Because absence removes the stimulus that the deactivating strategy was built to manage. The strategy was calibrated against your presence and your bid for connection. Without that stimulus, The strategy runs at reduced intensity. And with reduced intensity, the material the strategy was suppressing starts to find its way up. The memories of what was genuinely good, the appreciation of your specific qualities that the derogation narrative was suppressing. The sense of loss that was always there but was being managed into justification. This process doesn't happen overnight. For some avoidants, particularly those with strong fearful avoidant features, it begins within weeks. For dismissive avoidants with stronger suppression capacity, it can take months. What you need to know is that the timeline isn't in your hands. The trigger is in your hands, and the trigger is the quality of your absence. Make your absence real, not strategic. Real. Invest in your own life not as a signal you're sending, but as a genuine act of self-care and self-development that happens to produce the conditions for revaluation as a secondary effect. This is the version that works. This is what your behavior in this period needs to be oriented around. What's happening inside them right now? I want to take you inside what the avoidant is actually experiencing right now in the period after the leaving. Not the version they'd tell you if you asked. The version that the research shows is actually happening beneath the controlled surface. During the exit period and the period immediately after, the avoidance system is working. Not relaxing, not triumphantly free. Working. The deactivating strategies are actively running, processing memories of the relationship through the minimizing filter, maintaining the exit narrative, managing the periodic intrusions of positive material that the suppression doesn't fully prevent. There's cognitive load being used to sustain the position they've taken. As time passes and your genuine absence continues, the cognitive load of that maintenance gradually shifts. The stimulus the strategies were running against, your presence, your bids for connection, your availability, is no longer there. And without the stimulus, the strategies run at lower intensity because they have less to manage. This is not a sudden shift, it's gradual, but it's measurable and it changes the avoidance experience of the period in ways they may not fully understand. They start thinking about you more than they expected to. Not necessarily with longing at first. It might present as irritation or confusion or a quality of unsettledness they can't fully explain. But the thoughts don't stay absent the way they expected. The derogation narrative that was running on high no longer runs on high. When the memory of you surfaces, it surfaces with less of the distorting filter and more of the actual texture of what was there. They might start noticing in interactions with other people the absence of specific things you brought. Not just generally, not just I miss having a partner. Specifically, the specific quality of your humor, the specific way you understood something they were trying to say before they finished saying it, the specific ease of being with you during the parts of the relationship that were genuinely good. These specific recognitions are the signs that the devaluing narrative is losing its grip. And then, and this is the exact moment, there's a point at which they encounter something that breaks through the last layer of the suppression in a way that's unmistakable. A memory that arrives with its full weight, not filtered through the derogation. A moment in a new context that highlights precisely the absence of something only you brought. A specific quality of loss that registers not as management material but as real grief. This is the moment. This is what revaluation feels like from the inside. The first moment in which the full accuracy of what you were to them and what your loss actually means is available to conscious experience without the suppression immediately closing back over it. It's brief, often. The suppression reasserts, but it leaves residue. It doesn't fully return to where it was before. And from that residue, the revaluation continues to develop. What you're actually building when you invest in yourself right now. Here's what I want you to understand about the period between the leaving and the revaluation. It is not dead time. It is not waiting time. It is not the corridor you traverse on the way to what actually matters. This period is the most active and important developmental period you can engage in, and the investment you make in it compounds in every direction. When you invest genuinely in your own life, your growth, your projects, your connections, your healing from the loss of this relationship, you are simultaneously doing the work that produces genuine revaluation conditions and doing the work that produces the person you actually want to be, regardless of this relationship's outcome. These are not separate investments, they're the same investment with dual yield. Think about what investing in yourself right now actually builds. It builds the self-possession that, if the avoidant returns, makes you someone they can actually be in relationship with rather than someone they're managing. It builds the emotional regulation skills that break the anxious avoidance cycle at the level of your own patterns rather than requiring constant management around the avoidance. It builds the life that has genuine momentum and content and meaning, which is both the most compelling thing you can offer a potential reconnection and the best possible foundation for your life if the reconnection never comes. Every day you invest in yourself during this period is a day of real compound growth, not just for this situation, for every relationship you'll ever be in, for your professional life, for your relationship with yourself, for the quality of your inner experience independent of any external validation. The period after they leave is not punishment time, it's development time. Treat it accordingly. When they come back, how to know if it's real. If the revaluation happens and the avoidant reaches back, there are specific signs that distinguish a genuine reconnection from a reactive one. This distinction matters enormously, because the correct response to each is completely different. A reactive reconnection is the avoidant reaching back because the absence produced anxiety, and they want to relieve the anxiety. They want the connection's warmth back. They want to know it's still there. But they haven't done the deeper work, haven't examined the patterns that produced the exit, haven't developed new capacity for intimacy, haven't done anything to indicate that the next version of the relationship will be different from the last. 1. The reactive reconnection is characterized by warmth that doesn't come with accountability, by renewed interest that doesn't acknowledge what happened, by the implicit expectation that things will resume where they left off, which was, remember, in a place that ended. A genuine reconnection is different. It comes with some quality of acknowledgement, not necessarily a full accounting, not necessarily a therapeutic processing of everything, but some indication that the avoidant has registered what happened and has some awareness of their own contribution to it. It comes with a quality of genuine effort rather than just gesture. It sustains through the initial warmth of reconnecting rather than immediately cycling back to the same distance once the anxiety of absence is soothed. It produces, over time, a relationship that has a different texture, more mutual, more genuine, more capable of navigating closeness without the same defensive cycling. You deserve to know the difference. You deserve to apply that knowledge to how you engage with the reconnection, warmly with genuine openness to what might be possible, but without abandoning the self-knowledge and the standards that you developed during the period of their absence. The reconnection that's worth having is the one that doesn't require you to go back to being who you were before you grew. Hold that line with warmth rather than coldness, and see what the avoidant is actually capable of offering. The honest answer to what happens next. Here's the truth, stated plainly. The revaluation is real, it happens, and it does produce reconnection in a meaningful number of cases, but it is not a guarantee. It is not a timeline you can predict. It is not something you can produce through any behavior other than genuine self-investment. And it does not by itself mean the relationship will work differently if it continues. What you have control over is your own development, your own healing, your own investment in a life that has genuine meaning and content and momentum, independent of this relationship's outcome. The revaluation, if it happens, will find a person who did that work. If it doesn't happen, you will still have done that work and have a better life for it. That's the orientation. Not waiting for the revaluation, building the life, doing the work, becoming the person, and letting the revaluation, if it comes, find that person. The moment when they revalue you is the moment when they finally see clearly what's been in front of them the whole time. Make sure that what they see, if and when the seeing happens, is someone who chose themselves when choosing themselves was hard. Someone who built something real in the silence. Someone who didn't shrink or beg or wait, who grew and lived and became more fully themselves. That's who you are right now, in this period. That's who you're becoming. Keep becoming them. The rest will work out as it's meant to. The part nobody tells you, why the revaluation feels so sudden to them, here's something that will help you understand the avoidance experience more clearly, and why, when they do reach back, they often can't fully explain why or when things shifted. The revaluation doesn't feel gradual from inside the avoidance experience. From the outside, your side, it may seem like it should be a slow dawn, a gradual recognition. But that's because you're seeing the timeline from the starting point of the exit. From inside the avoidance experience, the deactivating strategy was doing its job right up until the moment it wasn't. And the moment it wasn't, the exact moment the suppressed positive material broke through the last layer of management, feels sudden. Feels like something snapping into focus. Like the thing they've been successfully not seeing finally becoming impossible to not see. This is why avoidants who reconnect after a period of distance often struggle to pinpoint the moment or explain what changed. They'll say things like, "I just started thinking about you differently," or "something shifted and I couldn't ignore it anymore," without being able to identify the mechanism. They're not being evasive. They genuinely can't access the process clearly because the process was running below conscious awareness. The conscious experience was of managing distance. The experience of revaluation was of that management suddenly failing to contain what it was containing. This also explains why the avoidance reconnection, when it happens, often has a quality of urgency they're not used to feeling. The feelings that have been suppressed arrive, when they arrive, with the accumulated weight of however long they've been below the surface. The avoidant may find themselves reaching before they've fully decided to, may send a message before they've worked out exactly what they want to say, may contact you without a clear plan for what comes after. This tentative, unprepared quality is actually a good sign. It means the feeling was strong enough to bypass the careful management that characterizes the avoidant's typical emotional material. Don't punish the lack of eloquence. Don't require the avoidant to arrive with a polished speech about what they realized and how they're different. The reach itself, unplanned and slightly awkward, is the communication. It's saying, "I lost the ability to not reach for you." That is the revaluation expressed in the only language the avoidant currently has available for it. What you do with that reach determines much of what follows. And the quality of your response, grounded, warm, not flooded with relief or urgency, is the quality that gives what's trying to emerge the room it needs to become something real. The long game, what you're actually playing for, I want to reframe how you're thinking about this period, because the framing you bring to it determines what you build in it. Most people in your situation are thinking about the short game. Will they come back? When will it happen? What should I do or not do to increase the chances? These are natural questions, but they're also limiting ones because they keep you oriented toward an outcome you can't control and away from the development you can control. The long game is this. Who are you going to be on the other side of this experience? What are you going to have built in the period between the exit and whatever comes next? Who are you becoming through the specific challenge of navigating an avoidant dynamic with enough awareness to understand what's happening and enough self-possession to not be consumed by it? Those questions matter more than the short game questions. Because the person you become through this process, if you engage it with genuine intention, is someone who handles relationships differently in every context going forward. Not just with this avoidant. With everyone. You develop the capacity to stay rooted in yourself when someone you care about creates distance. You develop the ability to communicate your needs clearly from calm rather than from desperation. You develop the wisdom to see attachment patterns, yours and others, with enough clarity to navigate them intentionally rather than reactively. These capacities don't expire when this situation resolves. They travel with you. They apply everywhere. The long game isn't about this relationship at all. It's about the version of yourself that emerges from navigating it with integrity and genuine effort. Play the long game. The short game will take care of itself, according to factors that aren't fully in your hands. The long game is entirely yours to build. The gift inside the difficulty, I want to say something that might be difficult to hear in the middle of the pain of this experience, but that is genuinely true and worth saying. The difficulty of what you've been through is also the specific fertilizer for the growth you're doing. Not in the toxic positivity sense of everything happens for a reason, nothing as tidy as that, but in the literal neurological sense that the challenges that require us to develop new capacities are the experiences that actually produce those capacities. The anxiety of the avoidant dynamic, navigated with increasing skill rather than reactive pursuit, builds emotional regulation. The uncertainty of not knowing where you stand, held without immediate resolution, builds tolerance for ambiguity. One of the most valuable emotional capacities there is. The loss of the relationship, grieved genuinely rather than suppressed or converted immediately into bitterness, builds emotional depth and maturity. None of this makes the difficulty worth it in a simple cost-benefit analysis, but it does make the difficulty generative. It is producing something in you, and that something, if you're willing to engage it deliberately rather than just survive it, is real and lasting and yours. The avoidant who left you gave you something they didn't intend to give you, the conditions for your own development, the growth that happens in response to difficulty when difficulty is engaged with intention and self-awareness. That growth is happening right now in you, whether or not the revaluation comes, whether or not the reconnection happens, whether or not any of this resolves in the way you hope it will. Own that growth. It's the most valuable thing this experience is producing. Don't let the focus on what the avoidant does or doesn't do obscure what you're actually gaining through the experience itself. Practical things to actually do right now. Let me get concrete for a moment, because it's not enough to talk about investing in yourself without naming what that actually looks like when you're in the middle of this. Investing in yourself right now means picking up the project you set down when the dynamic became consuming, the book you meant to read, the skill you meant to develop, the creative work you stopped doing because your emotional bandwidth was being used elsewhere. Pick it back up, not because it will make the avoidant value you more, because it's yours and it's been waiting. It means deepening the friendships that went on maintenance mode while you were managing the dynamic. The people who know you well and who want to know how you're actually doing, not just the performed I'm fine version, bring them back into proximity. Let them know you. Let them give you the specific reciprocity that the avoidant dynamic was denying you, so your nervous system can be reminded that genuine mutual care is available and real. It means doing whatever form of inner work is available to you and makes sense for you. Therapy, journaling, meditation, physical practice, anything that creates a real relationship with your own interior. The capacity to be with yourself, to tolerate your own thoughts and feelings without needing to immediately discharge them into action or pursuit, is the most fundamental capacity this situation is asking you to develop. Build that capacity deliberately. It means being honest with yourself about what you learn from this dynamic about your own patterns, not to beat yourself up about them, to understand them clearly enough to change them. What did you do in this relationship that came from your own attachment wounds rather than from genuine choice? Where did you accommodate in ways that were ultimately self-defeating? Where did you suppress your own needs in order to manage the avoidance comfort? These are important questions. Their answers are important information for every relationship that comes after this. 1. These concrete investments are what working on yourself actually means. Not a vague orientation toward growth, but specific daily choices about where your attention and energy go. Made from a genuine intention to become more fully yourself, regardless of what any particular person decides to do. Make them, one at a time, starting now. The revaluation, if it's coming, will find someone who made them. And you, either way, will be someone who made them. That's the outcome that matters most. One final thing. The person who is already there. I want to close with something I need you to really hear. The person you're becoming through this process. The one who chooses themselves, who builds their own life, who develops genuine self-possession in the face of an avoidant dynamic. That person is not someone you're going to become eventually, when the situation resolves, when you've done enough work, when things feel better. That person is already emerging, right now, in the specific choices you're making, or are about to make, or are trying to make even when it's hard. In the way you're engaging with your own experience, rather than just surviving it. In the fact that you're here, trying to understand what's happening rather than just reacting to it. Every time you resist the urge to reach when the anxiety spikes, every time you redirect into your own life when the uncertainty feels overwhelming, every time you choose to engage with your own growth rather than fixating on the avoidance process, you are being that person. You are already, in those moments, the version of yourself that the revaluation will find. Don't wait to inhabit that version of yourself until things feel resolved. Inhabit them now, in the middle of the uncertainty, in the middle of the grief, in the middle of whatever is unresolved and unknown and uncomfortable. That's where growth actually happens. In the middle, not after. You are already in it. Keep going. The system behind the exit, and why understanding it changes your response. Let me walk you through something specific about the avoidance attachment system that will completely change how you understand the period you're in right now, and what it's asking of you. When an avoidant exits a relationship, their system isn't just deciding to leave, it's deploying a specific protection mechanism that was built early in their life to manage a specific kind of threat, the threat of closeness becoming overwhelming. The system learned, through repeated early experience, that needing people leads to disappointment or suffocation, that closeness costs more than it's worth, that the safest way to operate in the world is to maintain enough distance that the cost of connection never becomes unmanageable. By adulthood, this system runs automatically, The avoidant doesn't experience it as a defensive strategy. They experience it as their genuine preference, as clarity about what they want, as the correct read on the relationship. The strategy is that successful at hiding itself, but here's what's actually happening at the neurological level. During the exit period, beneath the comfortable surface of managed distance, the avoidance threat system is still running. The departure required it. The cognitive work of building and maintaining the exit narrative, finding the evidence that justified leaving, suppressing the positive material that complicated the narrative, managing the occasional intrusion of genuine feeling, that work is ongoing. The avoidant is not relaxing into freedom. They are working to sustain a position that requires ongoing maintenance. You need to understand this because it changes what your absence does to them. Your absence doesn't just remove a pursued stimulus, it removes the maintenance load that was sustaining the exit position. When you stop reaching, when you stop providing the emotional demand that the exit narrative was pointing to as its justification, the maintenance load drops. And when the maintenance load drops, the suppressed material that the narrative was holding back starts to accumulate pressure on the other side of the barrier. Your absence is doing work. Quiet, invisible, powerful work. Don't interrupt it by providing them new material to work with. How to hold yourself together when the urgency is overwhelming. Let me be direct about the hardest part of this. The urgency you feel, the spike of anxiety when the silence goes too long, the desperate wanting to just reach out once and see where things are, the feeling that the not knowing is more painful than any outcome would be, that urgency is real. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do, and telling it to stop is not how you navigate it. What you can do, what actually works neurologically and practically, is redirect, not suppress, redirect. When the urgency spikes, move, physically move. Get up, go outside, do something physical, engage your body in a way that changes the channel of your nervous system. When the thoughts spiral, redirect them, deliberately, actively, into something that requires your genuine attention, a task, a conversation, a creative project, a piece of your life that deserves the energy the anxiety is currently consuming. And do this not once, but consistently, every time. Not because it will fix the anxiety in one session. Because the consistent practice of redirecting attention builds the literal neural capacity for it, the prefrontal cortical control that allows you to choose where your attention goes rather than having it hijacked by the attachment alarm every time it fires. You are building a skill. It takes practice. Each redirect is one rep. The cumulative effect of many reps is the self-regulation capacity that changes your experience of uncertainty from overwhelming to manageable. This is the practical work, the real, daily, unglamorous work of developing the emotional capacity that this situation is asking you to develop. It's not dramatic. It doesn't feel like progress in the moment. But it is progress, and it compounds. A week of consistent redirects produces something. A month produces significantly more. The person who does this work for the duration of the period after the avoidance exit is not the same person who started it. They are someone with a fundamentally different relationship to their own anxiety, and that relationship serves them for the rest of their life. Do the work, one redirect at a time. The truth about revaluation, what it is and what it isn't. Before we close, I want to make sure you're holding the revaluation concept clearly, without overinvesting in it or underinvesting in your own work in relation to it. The revaluation is real. It happens in genuine cases of real attachment, with something like inevitability, not because of anything you do to produce it, but because the mechanisms described in this video operate reliably when the conditions are right. If the connection was real, the feelings were real, and the absence is real, the revaluation follows with a reliability that makes it closer to a law of attachment psychology than to a hope. But the revaluation is not a resolution. It's an opening, a door that appears in the avoidance system when the suppression finally loses to the suppressed material. What's on the other side of the door, whether the door leads to genuine reconnection, to quiet private recognition that never becomes external action, or to a process of change and growth in the avoidant that eventually produces something different. None of that is determined by the revaluation itself. It's determined by what both people bring to the space the opening creates. What you need to bring is exactly what you've been building in this period: genuine self-possession, genuine investment in your own life, genuine self-knowledge about your own patterns and needs, genuine standards for what a relationship needs to offer you in order to be worth engaging in. These are not things you bring as a strategy. They are who you are at this point, built through the genuine work of the period you've been navigating. The revaluation will find you with them, or it won't come, and you'll have them anyway. Either way, you are who you've built yourself into, and that person is the best possible outcome of this whole process, regardless of any specific relationship's resolution. You're already there. Keep building. The rest takes care of itself. What it means that you're still thinking about this. Let me speak directly to you for a moment, not to the concept. If you're still here, still reading or watching, still trying to understand what happened and what's happening and what might happen, that tells me something about who you are. It tells me you're someone who takes the inner life seriously, who wants to understand what's happening in themselves and in the people they care about, not just manage the surface of behavior, who is willing to engage with uncomfortable truths about attachment and patterns and what it means to love someone who has difficulty being loved. That's not a small thing. Most people don't do that. Most people manage, suppress, distract, move on to the next thing. You're trying to understand. That quality, the willingness to engage with complexity, to sit with uncertainty long enough to develop understanding, is exactly the quality that makes you the kind of partner an avoidant at their best, most needs, and most rarely finds. It's also the quality that will serve your own life across every dimension, far beyond this specific situation. The fact that you're still here, still processing, still trying to understand, that's not you being stuck. That's you being someone who takes their own experience and the experience of the people who matter to them seriously. Honor that quality. Let it continue to do its work. And as it does, let it be increasingly directed toward yourself as well as toward the avoidant, toward understanding your own patterns as clearly as you understand theirs, toward being as generous in your attunement to your own needs as you've been in your attunement to theirs. That balanced direction, inward as well as outward, is what produces the genuine wholeness that is both the best version of yourself and the most compelling version of yourself to anyone capable of recognizing it, including, eventually, an avoidant who revalues you. From surviving to thriving, the shift that's available right now, there's a specific transition available to you in this period that most people miss because they're so focused on the relationship's outcome that they don't notice it. The transition from surviving the experience to actively thriving within it. Surviving looks like getting through each day, managing the anxiety, not reaching when the urgency spikes, trying not to check what they're doing, white-knuckling the patience. All of this is valid and real. Surviving is not a failure. It's what you do first. Thriving looks like genuinely investing in your life, not as an act of willpower, but as a genuine act of interest and care toward yourself. Building things you actually care about, deepening relationships that give you genuine reciprocity. Developing capacities you actually want. Coming home to yourself, to your own thoughts, your own projects, your own interior landscape, with something that approaches genuine appreciation for what's there. The shift from surviving to thriving doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments. A morning where you wake up and your first thought isn't about them. An afternoon where you get absorbed in something you care about, and you realize you haven't thought about the situation in hours. A conversation with a friend that reminds you of your specific humor, your specific intelligence, your specific way of being in the world that exists completely independently of any relationship. These moments multiply when you invest in them deliberately. When you notice them and stay in them rather than immediately redirecting back to the situation. When you let them be evidence of what's available to you rather than treating them as guilt-inducing distractions from the real focus. This is the life you get to be living right now, not eventually. Now, the avoidant may be dealing with their own recalibration somewhere else. Meanwhile, here there is a life to inhabit fully. There are moments of genuine absorption available. There is genuine richness in your own capacity for connection and thought and engagement with the world. Live it, not as a strategy, not as a performance, because it's yours and it's available and it's genuinely worth inhabiting, even in the middle of uncertainty and loss. The revaluation, if it's coming, will find you in that life, and the life will still be there, still real, still full, if it doesn't come. That's the deal. That's what's available. Take it. It's worth taking. The exact moment. A final description. Let me leave you with the most precise description I can offer of the exact moment the revaluation happens, because that's what the title promised, and it's worth delivering with clarity. The exact moment isn't a day or a week. It's a specific internal event. It's the moment when the avoidance deactivating strategy, the one that's been running at full capacity since the exit, maintaining the exit narrative, suppressing the positive material, encounters something it cannot process. That something might be a memory that arrives with more force than the strategy can flatten. It might be the recognition in a quiet moment when the usual distractions aren't available, that you've actually been gone, genuinely gone, in a way they weren't prepared for. It might be an encounter with someone who doesn't have the specific thing you brought, and the specific absence of that thing landing with unexpected weight. It might be a piece of information about your life since the exit, something they heard or saw, that makes it undeniable that you've moved on, genuinely, and that the connection they were comfortable treating as a deferrable return is not as deferrable as they assumed. Whatever the specific trigger, the moment has a common structure. The strategy fails to contain the material. The accurate positive assessment of you, of what you meant to them, of what your presence in their life actually was, it breaks through. Just for a moment, often, the strategy reasserts quickly. But the moment happened, and it leaves something in its wake that can't fully return to the pre-moment state. That's the exact moment. It's not the resolution. It's not the declaration. It's the first honest encounter with the full truth of what was there and what has been lost. And from that honest encounter, everything that comes next is possible, including, if both people do the work, something genuinely different than what existed before. Remember, that moment is coming, or has come, or is happening right now somewhere in their processing. And remember, your job isn't to produce it. Your job is to build the life that the moment when it arrives will find worth returning to, and to build that life regardless of whether the moment arrives and regardless of what it produces if it does. You are already doing that work. Keep doing it. It's the most important work there is. That life, the one you're building now, in the middle of the uncertainty, is yours. Not a placeholder, not a fallback, the real thing. And you deserve to live it fully, starting now, regardless of what anyone else decides about whether to be in it with you. That's what the exact moment of revaluation is ultimately pointing at. Not the avoidance recognition, but yours. Your recognition that you are worth the fullness of your own life, invested fully in yourself, waiting for no one's permission or participation to begin. Begin. You already have everything you need.